Yeah. That's great. You prefer a seat as
I never come in here. I've never been in this room before, so it's a special treat for me.
I'll let you pick your seat.
I have no idea where.
Okay.
I'll take that one over there.
three down here, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll just grab this.
Sorry, thanks.
Yeah, it is cold. I just
the temperature regulation in the studio is just very. It swings pretty drastically.
Ronan gave away all his best lines.
Yeah. I'm just going to say nothing over here.
Nothing left to say.
Everyone happy?
Yeah.
Good to go?
Yep.
Cool. Hey everyone, been one of those dramatic days. I think it's fair to say there was a time when nobody believed a second term was possible. But Michael Murphy will play for Donegal next year. Welcome to Bits and Bobs. Intro stolen from Ronan Mullen in the office just 5 minutes ago.
I'm on fire out there, Joe. I don't know if I can bring it in here, but
I did have to say to you, stop saying your best things out there. I'm not fake laughing inside.
I'm like a comedian, like working the circuit, like honing my stuff for the on-air special. So
Conan Doherty will face Michael Murphy's Donegal next year. You're very welcome.
Conan Doherty will not, but the county of Derry will. But thanks very much. It's great to be
I'm
here.
getting a bad feeling about Derry next year.
So, I don't know what's giving you that inkling, but you could be onto something.
And back for some recent travels, part of the Irish Independent Furniture, presenter of the excellent The Left Wing, Will Slattery, Bits and Bob's debut.
Yeah, delighted to be here, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. You were just saying Vietnam, the pick of the bunch from your Asian travels.
Very much so, yeah. I was going to say a few other things about the Vietnam War, but given the day that's in it, I don't think I'll wade into that kind of territory. But yeah, brilliant country to visit if anyone has a chance to get there.
So that was a 3-month spell you're away, and now you're fully reacclimatized, as in soul broken once again.
Oh, once you get back to Talbot Street, Joe, I know you've only worked here for a couple of weeks, but it quickly reacclimatizes you for sure. So yeah, no, ready to get back into the swing of things.
Andy Farrell has named his 15 to play New Zealand just in the last hour or so. Hugo Keenan's at full back. I mean, the back line's very, very strong. Hugo Keenan is at 15. Mac Hansen does get the nod. We were wondering yesterday with Ian Madigan and Keane Tracy, might Calvin Nash hang in there? But it's Mac Hansen on one wing, it's James Lowe on the other wing, and it's Ringrose and Aki as the centre pairing. Jack Crowley is with Jamison Gibson-Park. The good news, Ronan Kelleher is fit. The bad news, Tyke Furlong is not. So it's Andrew Porter, Ronan Kelleher, and then Finlay Bealham will start. Joe McCarthy and James Ryan in the second row. And Tyke Byrne goes at 6, Josh van der Fleer 7, Caelan Doris captains the side from 8, which means the replacements as follows. Rob Herring at hooker. Cian Healy, naturally, will never go away. Tom O'Toole will be off the bench. Ian Henderson, second row. Peter O'Mahony will come off the bench as well. And then it's Conor Murray, Kieran Frawley and Jamie Osborne in ahead of Robbie Henshaw, amongst others. Thoughts?
Yeah, the Furlong one is obviously the standout thing. Like, you read the team sheet there. Other than that, it's a very strong team. Like, Andy Farrell was very comfortable bringing Hugo Keenan straight back in, despite missing the summer tour. Bundy Aki, who was kind of dropped for that second test, didn't really get that much play at the time, really, because it was, the focus was kind of on the match and the dramatic win. But he was kind of dropped after the first test, so he's back in. Gibson-Park missed that with an injury. They're all kind of obvious. The Furlong injury is an interesting one. Obviously, not just what it does to the starting team, but the knock-on effect it has overall in the 23. Like, Finlay Bealham is a guy who has deputised really well when he has been called upon. Because Furlong, since kind of the COVID period, has had a good few niggles. Yeah. He's had, 3 match spells here and there when he's been out. Finlay Bealham started the Aviva against France in 2023. You were probably working on it for Virgin. It was like an unbelievable end-to-end game. Yeah. He gave the inside ball to Hugo Keenan from that set-piece try. I think that was a day where people were saying Ireland have 2 really good tight options.
I think generally kind of rubber-stamped at this stage, Bealham.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I don't think people have much trepidation with him starting. But I thought, from what I saw from the All Blacks in the final quarter at the weekend, would give me a bit of concern with Tom O'Toole being on the bench. His scrummaging, I think, is still a little raw for this level. And the winning of the game in a couple of ways was the New Zealand replacement props. They forced 2 scrum penalties in the final quarter, and that final scrum under the post, which should have on paper been an easy drop goal for George Ford, 10 metres out, turned into an absolute mess because the New Zealanders got a really good shove on. So I'd be a little concerned for the final quarter then if you have Healy and Tom O'Toole having to be pressed into action against Ofa Tuungafasi and Paulo, his name escapes me, the new young guy who's I think like 140 odd kilos. So that's that's a big ask for Tom O'Toole. So that would be kind of where I go with the Furlong injury, because I actually think it's a great opportunity for Beelum.
Interesting, Robbie Henshaw doesn't get the nod either. I guess Osborne has kind of shoved his way in a little bit, hasn't let anybody down.
Yeah, like Osborne obviously play. I was interested to see how he'd be treated in this window, because he played full back in the summer. No one had mapped that. And under one of Andy Farrell's kind of left field selections before that first test, he played really well with Hugo Keelan gone. He started the season really well at 12. Henshaw's only played, I think, one game, which was the most recent one against the Lions. So on form, it makes sense, but it's still a big call. And I was talking to Luke last night on the left wing. I was saying, this is Andy Farrell's last window for a year. So is there any calls he might make on that basis that he won't actually have his hands on these guys for 12 months, which is a long time? So Jamie Osborne, maybe to that end, does he want to see more of him in this window when he's at the helm, rather than just go with Robbie Henshaw again, potentially?
What was the left wing consensus on who wins on Friday?
Again, it was an Ireland victory, which I think, talk about groupthink, I think people this morning are saying election results, but I think we've fallen into it when it comes to Ireland versus New Zealand games. But once again, Ireland are at home. But what surprised me is that the margin of the handicap already, Ireland are 6-point favourites, which seems excessive.
Okay.
I think this is a tricky one. I think Ireland do win, but I think it'll be close. I think it could be like the England game at the weekend, potentially.
Yeah. The general theme of the last 24, 48 hours in the build-up has been, these two don't like each other. They do not like each other. Which I think is true. I don't think that's the media just concocting something.
I think a lot of countries seem to really hate the Irish team and the Irish kind of... Like Rosie Erasmus touched on it, I think, in that documentary. He's like, they think they're so effing smart. They really do. They think they're smarter than everyone else. And I think it's true. I think that's an accurate characterization. I think Irish fans or Irish rugby people, even in the media, we do think that the Irish system is very good, that the players are well managed, that the grassroots system is second to none. And although we haven't actually backed it up at the World Cup, so I can see why other countries are like, what are these guys talking about? Kind of the way we view Scotland is kind of how the rest of the world views us, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we think, geez, Blair Kinghorn before the World Cup game saying, we're going to do them this week. And Peter Manny after the game was like, what were they talking about? I think there's a little bit of that going on from the rest of the world.
Oh, God.
Or certainly the top three.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
100%. As you were speaking there, it's ironic because that's what we take issue with when other countries do this and characterise themselves with ideas beyond their station. And we're the pesky upstarts who haven't really rattled the World Cup, who are like, we're the best team in the world.
I think, to be fair to the team, the media has played its hand in that. And the Irish media footprint just on YouTube, look no further than a Razzie Erasmus team talk. It's big. And so I've been in a YouTube studio where Andy Dunn, for instance, would be saying, this is the smartest team in the world. And you look at the comment section and it's just like, it's like an explosion of South African vitriol. Who do you think you are? It's not the team necessarily saying it. I'm not, by the way, it's not all Andy Dunn's fault. I do think there probably is a perceived, not arrogance in the Irish media. The Irish punditry class is trying to analyse the team honestly, and they're seeing a lot of good things. Like, they're ranked officially number one in the world. They've been a very good team, so it's not like it's wild hubris. But I think maybe to
that's my
other
point.
countries, it looks a little self-satisfied.
People sometimes say, "Oh, the media getting carried away." I always say, "What am I meant to say?" After they beat South Africa with a drop goal by Kieran Frawley, or they beat South Africa in the pool stage. It's like, am I meant to come in on a Tuesday and talk to Luke and be like, "Ireland are shite"? So I get both sides of it. I agree with you. I think we are just analysing things as we're kind of watching them, but I could see maybe from afar. And also the rugby media, given the sport is not a huge global sport, as you say, Andy Dunn's comments can have world-reaching potential. It's not like if we say something about Ruben Amorim today, Ruben Amorim is going to get wind of it, whereas Rosie Erasmus 100% would get wind of anything that was actually said.
I think the internet's changed things.
It's interesting. Yesterday we were chatting about, I think it was the Six Nations piece you alluded to, Joe, that framed this as the upcoming rivalry in rugby at the moment, the hottest rivalry in rugby.
Yeah. Quite a few people mistook the YouTube headline that you, by the way, put on.
Well, actually, no. We know who is responsible for the video in the studio.
I think everybody would acknowledge New Zealand, South Africa is the great rugby in world rugby at large. But I just think the point is, at the moment,
exactly. But
our rivalry with New Zealand is so hot right now.
But it's so hot right now. No, but once again, we're not the ones necessarily peddling that alone.
Yes, Six Nations website.
Jim Hamilton said it yesterday. Six Nations, there's pieces in the English media today. From the outside looking in, people are looking at this is the game of the autumn that everybody's looking forward to.
Are we the English football team
Steady.
of
Scotland
the rugby world.
Stop naming all the worst things.
In terms of media, in terms
David
of
Mitchell meme.
overhyping. Are we the bad
Yeah,
guys? here?
we're Scottish rugby meets English soccer. So Michael Murphy, I kid you not, around the time of the rule change exhibition games, you reached out to, we talked to James Horn at the time, and Conor reached out to Michael Murphy. And I said, I doubt Irish Times columnist Michael Murphy is going to necessarily come on and talk to us.
Stranger things have happened.
Well, true. And you said, no, I think he's going to go back and play for Donegal. To which he said, okay. And here we are, Michael Murphy. Thomas Niblock reporting is back with Donegal 2025.
Yeah. I just knew something was wrong. Michael would have gotten back. Mick,
yes.
as I call him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just it had to be the Donegal thing, and it's huge. Like, if you're Jim McGuinness, of course you would do that. Like, he's the best player of a generation sitting in the county. He's probably definitely still top 15 players in Donegal.
What age is Murphy now?
35.
Okay. Do you think he looked at Aidan O'Shea and thought, with the rule change games, and thought, well, hang on, I can do that?
It's exactly what we said.
I'm not tracking back.
You
but I
can't
can do
track
that.
back.
Yeah.
Jim, I would love to go the whole way back, but I can't. The rules are the
rules
are
which
telling-
I invented.
Yeah.
Yeah, won't allow me.
Yeah, you've got a conspiracy theory on this.
Like, Donegal were not a million miles away, obviously. That Galway semi-final could have went either way. And I'm sure it crossed everyone's mind, geez, a bit of Murphy in here, even if it was for 20, 25 minutes, wouldn't have hurt at all. So, yeah, very intriguing.
I think he starts because even if he's not at the same levels, and I think he's took a year out, like he's doing punditry.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to have to do a lot of work to get back up to anywhere near where he was physically, but he's still Michael Murphy. He still occupies so much of your mind if you're an opposition team going in there. I mean, it's not going to occupy anybody in Derry's mind because they don't have a manager to think about that sort of thing. But
he'll take one of your best man markers.
Exactly,
You know,
yeah.
there'll be a whole array of
And just
things.
on that, like it's interesting because the skill set required from that line of defence is going to be different. It's going to be old school again in the sense that sticky man markers have become somewhat of a thing of the past. New things are going to be asked of cornerbacks, and equally fullbacks, like marauding fullbacks. We were chatting about Aaron McKay last week, who was like a drifting sweeper / getting involved in the attack, scored the goal. Whereas now, if Michael Murphy's on top of you, you're going to have to be keeping tabs on him, and that's going to be your primary focus. And a lot of defenders have come through without having had that man-to-man responsibility.
I think one aspect of it as well that I find interesting is that he was on the rules committee that devised these rules. Because listening to you guys analyse the trial matches, I think people said, the unintended consequences would have been poured over in these tactical discussions with the best managers in the game. He was in on those. So he goes in with Jim McGuinness and he can say, well, Jim, this rule, Jim Gavin actually made a really good point about this rule and how that could be exploited. Or, James Horn actually made this point about this rule and this could be a way we could do it. So he's actually coming in with a lot of knowledge of what the sport could look like from the best managers in the game.
imagine that's all Jim wanted out of him. He doesn't care about his footballing ability. Give me all the information you have.
Before we let that all go too far, in fairness to Michael Murphy, these rules have not even been passed yet. He's not going to unretire at the end of November if they're dealt a blow by
the way
Congress.
they're allowed to tweak them throughout the year. Is he still allowed to?
Is he now off the committee? Though?
Yeah, no, he still has a gilet. He's allowed to contribute. So that's big news in Donegal. Elsewhere, I saw, when I clicked on the top story in RTE a while ago, it was on the Independent website as well. It was the top story when I clicked on an RTE. And I said, oh God, no, don't, Rory, don't talk today. Rory McIlroy, Trump presidency could end golf split. I thought, oh no. So it's not as kind of terrible. He wasn't like, it's great news. It wasn't that.
I thought it was like when, the way Dana White took the mic last night, that Rory was just there. It's like, this is my chance as well.
I haven't seen Dana White take the mic yet. Is that a big moment?
You kind of need to see it and also avoid it at all costs,
Okay.
if you know what I mean.
Well, Rory's in Abu Dhabi. The race to Dubai is coming to a conclusion. By the way, he's in first place and virtually untouchable. So he is on the cusp of winning a 6th Order of Merit, which, it's kind of remarkable. That would put him level with Sevi on 6, and Montgomery's record of 8, which people thought would never be broken, is suddenly in touching distance. So, it is a little bit more nuanced, the points that he's making. Apparently, without boring everybody with the minutiae of the negotiations between LIV and PGA Tour, apparently the US Department of Justice has been a stumbling block or an issue, and so Donald Trump can have an influence on the DOJ and McElroy said, well, if that happened, that would be a huge moment for these negotiations. Now, then it all gets a little bit, just kind of too frothy, because Sky Sports are sort of saying, Donald Trump, you know, he claims that he could secure a deal in 15 minutes. And McElroy says he might be able to. He's got Elon Musk, who I think is the smartest man in the world, beside him. We might be able to do something if we can get Musk involved too. And then he says Trump has a great relationship with Saudi Arabia. He's got a great relationship with golf. He's a lover of golf. So maybe, who knows? But I think as president of the US, he's probably got bigger things to focus on other than golf. So I don't know, like McElroy and Trump, obviously they played golf together, and then in a subsequent interview with Lawrence Donegan, he said, well, I won't do that again. But there is kind of something, and maybe you're more immune to it when you're living in the States, whereby, well, let's not normalize this guy either. Like, let's not talk about Trump like he's a normal candidate, a normal president. He is an outright liar at all times, amongst many other things. And even like, let's get Elon Musk, the smartest man in the world, involved. I'm not following the election in granular detail, but even at this stage, I've now seen Elon Musk at least a dozen times telling thousands of, like, I don't know, somewhat vulnerable people, I think, if you vote for Kamala Harris, trust me, that will be the last election we have in this country. You stop and think about that for a second. He's literally lying to people and saying, if you vote for the Democrats, they'll end democracy. This is Elon Musk, smartest man in the world. So I kind of think, Rory, God, don't normalise them. He's not like pom-poms out, I love these people, but at the same time, it's a little too conciliatory.
We're reading the quotes as well. Like, was he like, Elon Musk is the smartest man in the world? But he's like, I think, you know, Elon Musk is the smartest man in the world. Like, if he was involved, maybe. I'd be interested to see the video as well, because I think the comments read differently if he's like deadly deadpanning and serious, and if he's kind of like, you know, the smartest man in the world, Elon Musk. I do agree with your points, but it would at least temper it slightly if it was kind of more of a
tongue-in-cheek.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Which I think is possible.
Yes. So more Elon Musk, a.k.a. smartest man in the world, with sort of a smile versus admiringly saying, Elon Musk, smartest man in the world, in my opinion.
They're two different sentiments.
Yeah.
What is Trump's relationship with like Golf Inc. now? As a tool for his gain, in the way that like Bryson was one of the people he called up on stage last night?
It's a good question. I mean, certainly it was very, very close for a long time, obviously, and a number of events were held on Trump courses. And then it's difficult with Trump to remember all the many, many mad things that have happened. But speaking from memory and open to correction, there was a major gaffe, I think, involving Mexico. And somewhere along the way, the PGA of America decided to sort of sever ties. They took a tournament away from one of his courses. And obviously, if you take on Trump at all, it's all out war. And then he very much, you know, moved towards LIV when LIV happened. But I still think he'd probably be friendly with golfers on both sides of the aisle, LIV and PGA Tour. Obviously, Bryson is his big chum at the moment. But I would, you know, golfers are notoriously Republican anyway. So with Golf Inc., I would think not a good relationship if Golf Inc. means the PGA Tour and kind of official
golf as an entity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I, you know, obviously he's probably the most famous golf fan in the world. So there's that as well. We have Eamon Dunphy in conversation earlier on, by the way, on your feed, just about the election at large. It just felt like the thing to talk about. Thought he had a very good line where he basically just said, we really don't know America like we think we do. And Ronan, you mentioned Jon Stewart's analysis last night, which is on YouTube, which is very, very good. And he was making a similar point, you know, that we're all applying logic now and we're all trying to analyse things and we don't have a clue what's going on here. I think that's kind of how a lot of people feel this morning. I also think you're applying logic to voters where, like in some cases, it's Looney Tunes and they believe all sorts of wildness on the internet. But then, like, there's sort of a profound ignorance to so many people. Like, I'm sure all of us included, no one has time to read all the policy documents of each candidate and then read independent information and then make up our minds on economics and the climate and any number of different things. Like, I saw a Vox Pop with a woman in her 20s and she was asked who you voted for and she said Trump. And, you know, talked about her outrage at the way Biden and I guess by extension Kamala Harris had handled the situation in Gaza. And so, you know, like, I'm not having that, so I voted for Trump. And I think the response from the guy is like, you realize Trump is possibly even more on Israel's side. And, like this is kind of one voter of a million. There's that famous Winston Churchill line, which I don't think he actually said apparently, but the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with every voter. And so it's like today we're all trying to understand the logic of the voters. And I can't understand it at all. I can't make sense of how it's all come about. It's almost too complicated. And we, how did black people vote? How did Latinos vote? How did white people vote? As if there's this like unified block. It's a bit like when people talk about the media, as if we get together in a convention and decide our agendas on different things. It's all far more complicated than that.
Channel 4 had a great clip with one of the pollsters who actually got it right. And because the mass consensus was this is too close to call in the swing states. But this guy actually went to these swing states and he realised that to build a correct paradigm these days, you need to actually go and talk to the people that you're polling, not just faceless checklists or emails.
Yeah.
And just on those who cross the border legally are taking issue with those who are crossing the border illegally. And that was a big voting issue for them. And they thought Trump, they don't like being peddled with or tarred with that brush.
Yeah.
And they thought Trump would be the one that would come down harder on that. So they were like, we don't like him either. But we're sick of being categorized like this. So it's just an interesting thing that wasn't captured in any of the other polls that I was reading.
Yeah.
But this guy actually went and spoke to them, and that's why he was accurate. So I just think, if nothing else, we kind of learned this lesson in 2016, but it's about time we kind of reframed what information we're looking for if we want accurate metrics on this stuff.
Yeah. We mentioned it the other day, the decline of the landline telephone has killed traditional polling, which was very accurate, and now they used to get a 60% response rate by randomly calling landlines, and now they're down to a 1% response rate on average. So the polls are just completely skewed in all sorts of ways.
He's definitely succeeded in normalising and almost trumpeting identity politics. We're talking about information and economics, climate, and for I'd say so much of the voters, it's just down to waving a flag, literally, as it turns out as well, and it's standing for something. And then if people, like opposition parties, feel like they need to counter that by standing for something as well against that. And then so many people who are voting in have their brains switched off. It's almost like I've got a team and you've got a team. Let's just go out and hope that team wins by just voting at the polls.
Yeah. One thing I found interesting, a lot of people listening might know Lawrence Donegan from being on second captains and stuff. Like he lives in America, and for the last 8 or 12 weeks he's been like driving around. I think he's been in like 25, 30 states, and he's talked to a lot of people. And he was adamant on Twitter that Harris would win in a landslide. He was like, Pennsylvania's sewn up, and I was like reading this and like, looking like Harris will win. And that obviously, talking about predictions there. Everyone was maybe not predicting this Trump one, but I was just very surprised that someone who's actually been on the ground, has been driving around America, has been talking to, he said, lots of different constituencies, not just like Democrats only. He was fully sure that Harris was going to win. So.
Yeah. Quite a few were. So Roy Stewart, who's like brilliant political observer.
Yeah.
Anthony Scaramucci, he was getting a sense from the Trump campaign, he would still know people on it, that they were worried. I think Lawrence mentioned it, quite a few people did, that on the ground there were Kamala Harris volunteers everywhere. Like there was just a feeling of like we're have all the momentum, and the Trump stuff on the ground was badly organised. It wasn't organised in effect, and so all of these kind of things were given a certain vibe. And then when push came to shove, obviously Trump prevailed. So
yeah, but to the John Stewart point as well, there'll be wisdom now after the fact, and when we're trying to figure out what it was, and you'll have a large proportion of people then saying, well, it was choose your poison, and and this will come out now in hindsight as well, and it's like we didn't get any of that in the build up to it, but as Ronan says, we did get it 8 years ago.
Well, the Stewart point was very good in that he played like what all the talking heads were saying after each election since 08, and just how completely wrong it is. So like it was like when Obama was elected in 08, you have all the talking heads saying, well, we've now entered a post-racial stage in American politics, and Stewart comes back to Stewart in the studio. I was like, well, that lasted a day. And and then like after Trump's win against Clinton, there was a sense of, well, we need okay, that's that Clinton, that generation is gone. We need someone younger. Yeah. We need someone younger. And then it cuts to Joe Biden. I accept your candidacy, and on it goes. And then when Trump loses that election, you have people saying,
he'll never set foot in the Capitol again.
He's a pariah. That's it. January 6th, it's over. And then fast forward. So, like, none of the conclusions anyone seems to reach ever are borne out. It's back to the thing. It's all too complicated. No one can make sense of, You can't get in the heads of how 200 million people are thinking.
It would be like if the EU had an election and you were having to people in Slovenia and people in Ireland. That's how different some of these parts in America are. Like, nothing against Slovenians, I'm just drawing it. The first country that came to my head. That's the kind of consensus you're trying to glean from the polls or from the coverage. If a kind of a body of people as vast as Europe would have to agree on one candidate, it would be very difficult. And there's probably be very diverse views and voting blocks and stuff like that.
And people are trying to boil it down to. So what was it? What was it?
What was the one thing?
Yeah.
We can't get inside the heads of Slovenians, as well knows.
Eamon Dunphy's waiting for you. He's a really good listen on it all. Before we wrap up, 4:30 p.m. on the 15th of December. Manchester United fans suddenly looking forward to this game against Man City at Old Trafford because Sporting Lisbon last night in the Champions League were 4-1 winners. In Ruben Amorim's last home game, there was like a big obrigado banner at the start of the game. Post-match, he's thrown in the air repeatedly by his players. And it was looking dodgy for most of the first half. Phil Foden scored after 3 minutes. And then Haaland had 3 very decent chances. Silva went close. And it was only on 38 minutes when Yorkes scored for Lisbon that there was a sense of something else at play. By the way, his first goal was so good. It was like the Mesut Ozil finish.
I was just going to say, oh my God, you read my mind. Because you pointed this out to me years ago, that the whole, for people who don't know, it's like Mesut Ozil plants it into the ground to get the lift. In a way, when we were playing football, we would have been taught to get your foot under it like a golf shot. Unbelievable. What a finish.
Yeah, and it's the only way he could get that ball up in the air from the angle, is just fire it.
Ironically, you probably saw he missed an almost identical chance a few minutes before that. And so at least he got the technique right. Yeah.
Second goal, an amazing move. I think if you're a Manchester United fan, the second goal is the most encouraging of the lot. And then penalty, bad Gore Vidal challenge. Haaland missed a penalty crossbar. Then another penalty for Lisbon. And that was that. I didn't get to see the game live. I had thought, until you corrected me, Ronan, that Noel Gallagher was interviewed by Ali McCoist and Fletch in the stand after the game.
Oh, God, no.
And he said, no, he was on co-commentary.
Yeah, it's funny because Laura Woods did I was watching this game because I thought it's dripping with narratives. Can't wait to get stuck into this. And then she was introducing and on commentary and she listed them off. And she said Noel Gallagher. It didn't even occur to me that it would be Oasis Noel Gallagher. I presumed it's, I don't know, another way they have a referee there occasionally as a rules expert or whatever. Yeah, and then he was actually not, it's kind of indicative of the quality of TV punchy these days. He's not the worst co-commentator I've heard this season. He had some insight, to be fair. He kept calling Man City we. That was a little bit grating.
So, like, are you telling me Haaland would miss a chance and Ali McCoist would be given it the old, what he's tried to do there is get his body over it, just didn't do it enough. And then Noel, what did you think about the chance?
No, but Noel would be like, we've been conceding that type of goal all season, and he'd name 1 or 2 examples. You know, he does have a breadth of that. He has watched a lot of Man City, in fairness, more than me and most. But yeah, it wasn't as...
Is this a development that you welcome?
I love Noel Gallagher.
So you'd have him
for what it's worth.
Okay. So if he joined TNT for the season...
But it's also not the first. He did the Manchester Derby like 8 years ago on Sky as a pundit. So he was in studio.
I remember that.
Because Man City didn't have anyone. It's just kind of testament to what a nothing club they are. They didn't have anyone to bring in. So he was the best they had to offer. I remember Kevin Kilban at the time was like, I told him that and he was aghast.
Well, we're talking about like political standards being debased at the moment. Like, what's going on here?
Well, the BBC for Ireland final, they had like a celebrity panel at halftime. I feel like that's like the first step. Like, Darragh O'Brien was talking to Paul Mescal, the guy from that cop show. I can't remember.
Line of Duty.
I sort of got that though.
That was that's different. Yeah.
We are your gateway drug to this new and foreign sport. Whereas this is like an English football audience listening to.
Well, I don't know what's the reasoning behind it.
I think know. Desperation.
Just marketing.
TNT, formerly BT, just sensing. Nothing we do works. What can we? No, it just isn't. Something's not working.
I love that they're looking at Sky's product and they see Jamie and Gary in the gantry and say, we need 2 young co-coms as well. Get me Noel Gallagher. And then Gary and Jamie are wondering, which one of us is it's Noel Gallagher? Which one's the expert? And Ali McCoist too.
It's Liam Gallagher that we want next. That would be taking it up another notch.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
I know you ran through the goals there, Joe. The fourth goal, actually, the penalty, the one that Gyökeres completes his hat trick. Mm-hmm. The way that ball is won back with a high press up the pitch is just a goal that is unrecognisable to Man United fans. That I don't know who's going to be that person who's winning that ball back.
I do look forward in 6 months' time to us saying, why can't they play like Sporting Lisbon played? I mean, don't worry, that club will eat him up.
Yeah.
Although he does seem to have, in a way that Ten Hag from day one, when you didn't want to judge someone based on their personality and their conduct in a press conference, but you kind of just couldn't help yourself doing it anyway, in a way that he didn't feel Klopp-like or big-time club-like, the early signs in Amorim are really encouraging in that respect. We're getting to know him. What better conduit to get to know Ruben Amorim than through Gary Cotterill of Sky Sports? So they've had 2 exchanges. I think the first one widely shared, where Gary Cotterill was disdainful of the fact that Ruben Amorim in the pre-match press conference didn't want to talk in English, wanted to talk to his Portuguese audience ahead of his last home game in charge.
Ruben, hello. Do you know what we miss?
What?
Your wonderful English.
Sorry.
Can we have one answer in English for all people who are going to be watching this game, interested in Manchester City, in Sporting and in Manchester United? One answer in English.
You'll have time you'll have time to hear Ruben speaking English. Now it's time for him to speak.
Have Manchester United asked you not to speak in English?
No. No.
I wondered if you were aware that obviously to win tomorrow night will be brilliant for your current club, but also brilliant for your new club. You could be a hero even before you get on a plane to Manchester. Has that crossed your mind? In English, please.
Sorry, I cannot speak in English now.
Why?
Sorry.
Why?
Sorry. They will miss me in Portuguese, so I have to speak Portuguese.
They've had about 25 minutes in Portuguese.
I know.
We want 10 seconds in English.
We'll proceed in Portuguese. Next week, you can hear him talking English. Okay.
Yes. More basic English.
It's like a cold shoulder to all your English fans.
No, sorry.
The internet decided, and Gary Cotterill did not come out well in that exchange.
I think his overall point is correct, though.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think it's very. He comes about it like awfully. He sounds awful
in English, please.
Yeah,
Cold shoulder.
awful. But I think the basic point, he's come to ask one question that Ruben Amorim couldn't deviate from whatever plan. I actually think it's very, very rude by Ruben Amorim initially, and then Gary Cotterill then just says, "No, look, I'm going to take this another few steps further." But I actually just maybe I'm coming from a media perspective. People listening to this who aren't involved in the media probably just think it's completely wrong by the reporter, but I'm thinking if you're asking a guy one question and he's refusing to answer it for some what seems a fairly flimsy reason, I just but like
You're Team Cotterill.
I'm Team Cotterill. I am.
They made up post-match, so Cotterill and Amorim meet again.
In English.
Wow, congratulations, Alex. Our agreement. I just wondered how you feel tonight. That send-off from your players, that send-off from, I know you've got another game, but tonight at home from the fans. And what message does that send to the Premier League, that performance?
Yeah, it's misleading. Like I was saying, we were very lucky today in the game. So, but the feeling with my players, the way they celebrate this win, the moment with the fans, was very, very special. So I take this to Premier League. When I arrive there, it's a different world, a different pressure. I will try to be the same. So will be fun, very fun, and I'm ready for the challenge.
Thanks for your help this week and your understanding.
Yeah, obrigado. Thank you.
Oh, Cotterill.
Wow.
You old charmer.
I thought that was a very impressive answer, though.
You like the cut of his jib, do you?
Yeah. I thought it was. I think he comes across very well. A lot of inner confidence without being arrogant about it. Yeah, I think he's got something.
I don't know. I think that's the continental flair that's rubbing off on you. I mean, we just spoke about how boring some GA answers can be, where people just play things down like, no, look, Joanne, look, it's going to be a different pressure. Look, we're just going to concentrate on it. You put a Mayo accent on Amorim there, and that's basically what he's done there with Gary Cotterill. I'm not ruling him out completely. I do like the cut of his jib as well. I think you're onto something. But what I think was the most incredible thing of those two exchanges was Cotterill thinking he's speaking on behalf of all the English fans. It's a cold shoulder to all your English fans. Yeah. Like, I am the conduit that you can go through.
Amorim's last game, the 11th of November, so this weekend, and then he's over. Okay.
But it's interesting, just not to labour the point on Gyökeres, but it would have been the first time a lot of people might have seen him in full last night.
Yeah.
He's like the hot young thing at the moment. He's actually in his mid-20s. He's not a young talent per se. He's kind of approaching his prime, but he had been at Brighton and was let go to Coventry by Dan Ashworth, who conceivably is going to be buying him back for. So he sold him for 1 million to Coventry. He'd probably be buying him back for 100 times that in a couple of months.
Right.
Just the result itself, I do think it's like the worst thing that could happen to like his candidacy at Man United. I feel like 4-1 is just setting it up to like. I think a 1-1 draw would have been, this guy knows what he's doing. Like he took a point off City there. Like he could be like, primed to start well at United. 4-1, if it doesn't start well, come December 15th and they, if they lose 3 or 4-0 at home, like the Liverpool game earlier this season, I just think it'll be, you're like, why can't they play like Sporting Lisbon?
Could it be good for him though, in the sense that all English fans, Manchester United fans, I'm sure in particular, watched that game. City fans, they saw what he could do, and so if it doesn't go well against City, then at least there'll be no doubt. God, it really is the players. They are terrible. Like he'll almost be insulated from massive critique because he's just had this very fresh. Look what I can do with the right tools. Maybe might be in his favour.
Yeah, potentially.
Liverpool 4-0 against Bayer Leverkusen. Who needs Alonso was the general sense. Arne Slot. Again, first half, Liverpool in that kind of strange way, not quite clicking. And then when they do click, they're awesome. So Curtis Jones got things moving with a pass to Diaz. He scored a hat-trick on the hour mark. And they scored 2 goals in 2 minutes and just blitzed them. Queeving Kelleher with some very, very good saves, even though he didn't have much to do for much of the game. Real Madrid beaten by Milan 3-1. And then Celtic-Leipzig, worth a quick mention. So Leipzig went 1-0 up. And then Nicholas Kuhn, oh my goodness, 24 years of age, signed by Celtic from Rapid Vienna for €3 million 10 months ago to zero fanfare. And he was extraordinary, scored 2 goals. There's an outrageous assist. Joe Hart was on TNT. And he was talking about his time at Celtic. You would always hear Brendan at halftime saying to him, Nicholas, go out there and show us what you've got. I mean, he just looks like a baller. Left-footed, socks halfway down his legs. You know the type.
No, he's just a really interesting case study. Number one, I just like to give Celtic their flowers because I feel like those who don't watch them very often, and I'm not a Celtic fan, but felt like after they got destroyed by Dortmund, it was like, get back in your box. If you were in the Premier League, you'd be relegation fodder. And then it would have been so easy for Brendan Rodgers to approach that game last night against Leipzig, who were joint top of the Bundesliga until last weekend. Parked the bus and they doubled down. They went at them and they played extraordinary football and were well worth the win. And then Kuhn is an interesting case study as well in that. So he's 24, and you'll remember when Spain were beating Germany prior to that 2014 World Cup win with a false 9. Spain played with the false 9 with Fabregas and all that kind of stuff, and Germany kind of realised we have to forego the traditional German number 9. And they started developing all these sort of diminutive, like half forwards, not quite sure what they are. Mm-hmm. And Kuhn kind of fell within this thing where they didn't quite know what he was. Ironically, he was at Leipzig at youth level and they let him go. And he ended up going to Ajax and he kind of flitted around and ended up at Celtic. And you just see now that, he came through this conveyor belt that he didn't quite know what he was, and he's kind of landed on his feet and can become something. And perhaps this is the upshot of the new Champions League format where these guys can play meaningful games and contribute, and he really shone last night.
Yeah, I don't mind this format at all, I have to say.
I was about to come in on the format because after I saw the Celtic result, I just went to the standings to see where they were, and I actually think that additional round of knockout games as well will throw up some exciting games we wouldn't see in the knockout stages traditionally. Like Celtic could be there and a few other teams, that extra layer of kind of excitement and drama, because obviously when it was first announced, the Swiss method, if you're not familiar with chess, you probably hadn't come across it. You didn't really know how it worked, but I think it's gone pretty well so far.
I do as well. Yeah. I think one of the bigger criticisms of it gives the bigger teams too many chances to stay in the competition. They were staying in anyway. How many more Manchester City beating Sparta Prague group stages did anyone need? I do think this is better.
It gives the smaller teams a chance to stay in the competition as well. It means when you lose 7-1 to Borussia Dortmund, it's not season over stuff. You've got more chance to bounce back. You don't have to play Borussia Dortmund again either. You move on, and Brendan Rodgers is moving on. I mean, it's Atalanta draw, big result, and then the Leipzig thing. I remember the Roy Keane rant after the game down in Cork before the Bosnia playoff match in 2016, and he just went through all the players, and it was basically the tone was, tackle, run back, show that you care. And I just had a look through the stats just to see the difference. And against Dortmund, Celtic's tackle success rate against dribblers running up the pitch was 36%, and last night it was 80%. So basically, against Dortmund, every 3 times somebody ran with the ball, a tackle wasn't being made twice. Like, they were just running up the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see all of last night's game, but against Dortmund, certainly the problem with the press was Dortmund played around it with ease, and then there was a huge gap between Celtic's top 4 players and the suckers in defence +1. They just had 1 midfielder plus their 4, and there were oceans of space, and it was actually kind of badly done. I presume even if they did press last night, it must have been better than what it was against Dortmund.
The second goal comes from that. It's press in the corner, the crowd, like it's almost half time, and it's 1 each, and the crowd are going nuts because they feel like they have them hemmed in. Celtic win it back, they lose it again, they win it back again, and then rather than just crossing the ball in because it's down on the left corner, they just work it across the byline, just so composed and showing that bit of, I suppose, a bit of footballing ability that Brendan Rodgers wants to see as well.
Yeah. Rod Stewart coming to a TNT commentary soon. Fellas, that is pretty much us done. There was an email in, Darren, I won't read it all out, but you were wondering about some F1 coverage. We're going to have Jenny Gow on the podcast next Thursday, big part of BBC's coverage, so she's going to join us. You were mentioning in your email, well, sorry, I'll just read your email briefly. I had meant to mention it earlier. So he was talking about how brilliant the Grand Prix was at the weekend, where Max Verstappen has sort of kind of reclaimed control of the championship race in a big way. He came from 17th to win. Electric, says Darren. Everybody else, like Bambi on ice, owing to a rain-soaked track. He made it from 17th up to 10 within 2 laps and ultimately came through to win. So he said he'd love to hear chat about that. So we'll do that next week. And then the Conor McGregor trial obviously is across the front pages today. Not really a bits and bobs topic, but I suspect sometime next week we'll chat to somebody who's been covering the case at large. We'll do that next week as well. So that is about the gist. Colin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Ronan, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Will, survived.
I got through it okay. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.